Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Charlie Sells, founder of Clarity Over Everything and a brand strategist, over 15 years of experience across agencies, in house teams, and national brands. So, we'll understand from him what most leaders misunderstand about clarity. We'll discover with him how to get clear where confusion usually begins, how long true clarity takes, and why curiosity might be the greatest gift you can give your brand. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, so I'm thrilled to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Charlie. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We will talk about brand positioning, we'll talk about clarity, and much more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Yeah, so I went to school, went to the university for marketing, and then graduated into kind of a weird economy. And so I wound up working as a pastor for about 10 years. And while I did that, it turns out that when church people don't really want to do business things, they look to the business guy to do it. So I was doing a lot of websites and social media and newsletters and all kinds of stuff very early on in my career, even though there wasn't just a direct connection to the marketing aspect of it. And so about 10 years later, I decided that, with a family, I needed to jettison and do some different things just lifestyle wise. And so got back into the marketing world, specifically in copywriting and content strategy. Worked for a big company for about 4 years and then an agency for just a minute. And now coming up on 2 years, and now I help businesses reduce all of the confusion and the complexity in their brand and their marketing, and so that way they can go faster and not rely on guesswork. And at the end of the day, especially if you're a business owner and a leader, you get to do more of what you love, and that's the whole goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Charlie, I want to understand, means what is it that you uh, are trying to tell the world about, especially businesses, about what you are doing? Do you think it is something new, or is it that they know about it, but they don't have much understanding about it the way you want it to be?
I don't think it's new. A friend of mine, when I was starting out on this whole entrepreneurial journey, if you want to call it that, we all deal with imposter syndrome at some way, shape, form, or fashion. And being in the marketing and the branding world, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of different variations and derivatives of ideas and such. And so one of the things he encouraged me to do was let the world know what your angle of the diamond looks like. And so I have just a different way of looking at brand positioning and marketing strategy that I think makes a lot of sense, especially for small businesses and small business owners. So what I hope to convey at the end of the day is that you don't have to commit random acts of marketing. You don't have to have confusion and complexity, and you certainly don't have to rely on guesswork to try to figure out through trial and error, are we doing the right things that are going to move the needle for our business? And I say trial and error very importantly because I believe in testing and learning. A lot of people just pile tactics on, and businesses wind up doing a lot of things without a clear strategy. And at the end of the day, it just comes from a lack of clarity and alignment. And so what I do specifically in my work is I look at the entire scope. What are we doing in this brand? What are we doing as a business when it comes to marketing and other functions? And then we sort of start to trim the fat a little bit and reduce some of the things that are not working. We continue to do the things that are, because the goal is not to just blow it up and start over. The goal is to build upon what's already working and then slowly and systematically and in a phased approach add in things that are going to, number one, make sense for your business. And number two, at the end of the day, get you more customers, have a stronger brand, and make more money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when does brand strategist Charlie Sells get into the picture? And much more specifically, though the name says it, but I want you to help understand a lot of small businesses, especially about clarity over everything. You are the founder of Clarity. What is this whole thing about?
That's a great question. So I'll start there. When I worked for a very large company, I had a leader very early on that really challenged me. I'm kind of a new copywriter and getting into the marketing world full time for the very first time. And she said, I want you to find a way to make yourself so valuable that nobody can start a meeting without you in there. And I knew it wasn't going to be because of my experience or my ravishing good looks or anything like that. I knew it was going to be something different. And so I made a commitment right there to ask the best questions in the room, to make sure that I was the person who understood everything, at least from a functional standpoint. And eventually I heard somebody in this company say, our goal is in our position as marketers is to drive for clarity over everything. And so I just took that and adopted it and shortened it and said, well, that's, I think, what I want to be about at the end of the day. When it comes down to copywriting and content strategy, that's so central to what we do is we want to reduce confusion and make it really easy for customers to understand what we say and how we say it, what our product is, so that eventually they can purchase or, become a customer. And so that's where the name came from. It just came from a kind of an evolution of sorts. Where I come in specifically for small businesses, it's usually one of two places. I have done some go-to-market strategies, but that's not really my sweet spot. I mean, I love seeing people create some things from the ground up. That's a lot of fun. Where I am most effective is for folks who have been doing something for maybe 2, 3, or 4 years. They might be on their own. They might have a small team. Most often, they have worked with a marketing agency before, or maybe a group of marketers. Again, kind of that random acts of marketing that I mentioned earlier. And so what I'm able to do is just from an objective seat is say, all right, I'm going to look at the entire scope of what we've done. I look at data, I look at social media, I look at emails, I look for all of the gaps and all of the opportunities that could be in front of us. And then I get with this business owner for a half day or a full day. We put a whiteboard or a bunch of big Post-it notes up on the wall, and we just start to dream and say, what could this thing look like? And if that is true, if this is where we want to be in a year, what do we have to do in the next 90 days? Because that's the most critical time for a brand, is once you stop doing some things and start doing other things, that first 90 days is one of the most important windows. And so we have to prioritize the right things and make sure that we put the other things on the back burner. And then number two is we got to have a roadmap. We got to know where exactly we're going, because if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every single time. So that's where I'm honestly most effective. And the great part of the deliverables that I give is I can help implement some of that either as an advisor or as a hands-on person, or you can now take this roadmap to a marketing team or an agency, and they can help make it come to life as well if you need those kinds of resources to make it to make your vision realized.
Absolutely, Charlie. Absolutely. So a lot of these small businesses, they are very hands-on. They know about it. They can feel their business. They know about their customers.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it then they misunderstand about brand clarity, their own brand? And
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to tell them why it matters so much? Especially, somebody will say, Charlie, I'm already selling so much. Why do I need extra clarity in my life when I'm already, why to go for, why, fix something when it's not broken? Help us
Absolutely.
understand from that perspective, Charlie.
That's a great question, and something that I hear from small business owners all the time, where a lot of the things that they're doing probably are working. But I've heard this phrase so much over the last couple of years that it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. And a lot of business owners are so good at the day-to-day, running the business, casting vision, doing what they are best at, that sometimes they forget the thing that they have built. They forget to get above in that 40,000 foot view for just a minute and go, oh, okay, there are some opportunities I didn't realize were in front of me. And I want to explore those and make sure that we take advantage of them. So I think that's part one, is that working with a consultant or a coach or somebody like me, that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. Now, I know that some will slap a playbook down and say, here's what you should do, and also hand me $30,000. And that's a really hard way to build a business, especially to build a brand. And so what I tell clients all the time is, when you work with somebody like me, two things are going to happen. Number one, at minimum, you're going to get confirmation that what you are doing is working. And that doesn't happen very often, where it's just like, oh yeah, everything is fantastic and we just want to keep going. More often than not, we do discover the things that are working, and we discover gaps that may not have been realized before, and new opportunities probably borrowed from some other industries or some other insights. And that's where business owners' eyes really start to light up, where they go, oh, I really hadn't looked at my competitor's website before. I didn't realize that they were doing this on social media. One of the things I preach very strongly is I don't believe that you have to copy your customers, but you do it, or your competitors rather. But I do believe you need to know what they're doing. And I have a great client example. I was working with one last year, and they really hadn't looked at the entire scope of their industry. Now, to be clear, they were, as you said, they were crushing it. They had no problem. They had an 85 to 90% retention business. They didn't really need new business or anything like that. But in the process of looking at all of their competitors' websites, they realized they were not communicating correctly to potential customers if they wanted to grow their business. They were being very factual. They were being very straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot of life in the brand, if I'm being honest. And at the end of the day, their eyes were kind of open to go, oh, we do need to change this. They didn't need a new website. They didn't need a new logo. They just needed some things that were tightened up. And I think that every small business owner needs that objective perspective, somebody who can just come in and be a trusted collaborative partner and really steer them in the right way. Because I'm not selling new tactics. I'm not selling new creative. I'm not selling all those things. I'm working with them to have a strategy that, number one, they understand, and number two, they are confident is going to work for them and not against them.
Absolutely. So, is it only about businesses with tangible products, or also with services? How does that work? About especially about brand clarity with people with products as well as with services.
Yeah, it's a great question. A friend of mine who runs masterminds, he's one of the best facilitators I think I've ever met. When he was early on in his business and I was just kind of starting out, I cut him one of those really good friend deals. I'm like, hey, can you just help me get some reps and, just toss me a couple of bucks and, maybe a referral or two, and I'll run you through one of my clarity and alignment sprints. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And so we just had a day where I helped him and he helped me and all of that. And one of the things that he realized was that he was really good at the facilitation aspect of it, but there was an opportunity to grow that he hadn't necessarily thought about building out. So great at the in-person stuff, getting small groups together, a variety of small business types and industries and personalities around the same table. But he realized in the course of our conversation that he needed some repeatable, predictable, maybe even passive income and revenue, and started to think about, what if I expanded this online, and what if I did quarterly or 6-month or 12-month masterminds. And so when we talked through the brand positioning of it, it was far less of like, here's how to make it sound appealing. It was more about like, you're already doing these things. Now we just need to translate it into a different audience, or into a different medium, so to speak. He wasn't doing very much on social media at that time either. It was all word of mouth, which is a great way to run a business, but it's a really difficult way to grow a business to the scale that I think most of us would like to have. So yeah, it works for sales. It works for it works for services. It works for all kinds of things. I mean, this is branding is not just about products. It's not just about labels. It's not just about colors and logos and everything else. At the end of the day, a lot of it is what your customers say when you're not around, or when you're not in the room, or when you don't even know that they're talking about your brand. When people come over to our house, I'm the first one to say, have you tried this kind of coffee? Have you tried this kind of food? Like, have you seen this this piece of technology that's changed my life? Right? That's really the permeation of a brand when it goes beyond some of the tactical things that you're doing. And it applies to everybody. It's a personal brand, a service, a product. It's really kind of agnostic. I mean, you've got to have clarity in positioning and be competitive in your space, no matter what.
Absolutely, Charlie. Absolutely. So let's talk about a bit about your hidden taxes concept. The invisible costs of confusion, misalignment, and friction that every business face, and only one of
Yep.
them is financial, as you say. Help us understand so that businesses understand about money,
Yeah.
and they will understand about this stock taxes, especially. Help us understand about this.
This is where a lot of business leaders like to start, is when something is not working, we go and look at the data. And what do the numbers tell us? Numbers are great, but they're not everything. They can certainly be directional and sometimes help us make a final decision. But I know a lot of business owners stake their claim and say, if the data doesn't support it, then we shouldn't do it. Or if the numbers are telling us to go in this direction, that's where we should go. But there are some other things specifically related to branding and marketing that I think wind up taxing you and costing you and your business way before it ever hits your bottom line. So, for example, I think the very first thing is when one of the hidden taxes is there are just poor decisions that are made. And I don't mean bad decisions, because we're all going to make bad decisions. We're all going to make wrong decisions. Poor decisions, by contrast, though, are the ones that we make really quickly because we just want to move on to the next thing, or we make them without context. We just say like, oh yeah, well, I don't need to know what specifically you were going to bring to the table. We just need to make this decision and move on. Or and this is one of my favorite ones, we just root it in, oh, this is the way we've always done it, and so let's just continue to do it that way. Eventually that will lead to, if you're in a big team or if you're working with a marketing agency, duplicated work. Two different roles are trying to do the exact same thing, and we all look up and go, wait a second, I thought I was, but I thought I owned it. And now we have this weird back and forth of like, whose job was it really? That's going to lead to a lot of wasted time. You're going to have more meetings. You're going to have a lot of rework. You're going to have a lot of second guessing. And especially from a leader standpoint, if you are way too invested in a brand and in a marketing, you're going to be in a lot of meetings where you feel like you have to be the gatekeeper. Eventually that's going to tank everybody's morale. Nobody's going to want to put out the effort. Momentum is going to stall. Everything is just going to come to a slow kind of train brake halt at some point. Eventually, some folks are going to burn out and growth is going to slow down. All of those, by the way, are internal taxes, because then what that does with your branding and your marketing efforts to your customers is it leads to very frustrated customers who do not understand what you're trying to say, how you're trying to say it, where you're saying it, because it's just all over the place and it's inconsistent. You're going to miss opportunities because messaging is fuzzy. It's going to kill trust. It's going to slow down customer decisions. Over time, that is going to erode your brand. You're not going to have a lot of brand equity to have because everything doesn't make sense. And that viral campaign we thought was going to be great, it doesn't match the website and the landing page experience. And then finally, as you said, you're going to lose money. So a lot of people want to start at that, like, where are we losing money, and then reverse engineer it. But I encourage business owners to look at, are you wasting a lot of time answering the same questions, multiple times a week? Are you in too many meetings? Is everything feel like it slows down as soon as you say, all right, let's go? That's how we know that there is complexity and confusion instead of clarity and alignment around some of the efforts, or even the overall efforts in marketing and branding that you're doing.
Absolutely. And talking of complexity, see, business people are busy people.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, things should be done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So how much time does it normally need for them to move from complexity to clarity? And also, so what should be their expectation? What is the right way to look at? Secondly, as soon as they have clarity with whatever way they have it, in whatever time they have it, they want to get started. And so where do they start integrating that, infusing that clarity within their organization, mid-size, small size, or slightly bigger? Also, especially when they are already doing good. They don't want to tinker with the already existing successful model. Clarity can sometimes, they may lead to that confusion that it will start impacting their revenues. Help us understand from these ground level questions that they may be having.
Well, I want to say very clearly, ironically, that clarity isn't a destination. There is not going to be this crystallizing, catalytic moment where all of a sudden everything makes sense, and we have this heavens are opening and the light is shining on the path that we need to go down, and everybody is skipping along, picking flowers and all of that kind of stuff. That's not how clarity works, and especially in your business. The way clarity works, however, it's connected, of course, but clarity, by contrast, is more like everybody understands the direction that we're going. Everybody understands what their role is, how it ties to a goal or a vision or a mission or a number, etc. So some of it is cultural, some of it is palpable within your company, within your culture. But I think a lot of business owners make this mistake where they feel like they have to be the one source of truth or the one source of clarity, and that all answers start there. Your goal as a leader is to cast vision and help drive everybody else. It's just like a ship, right? The captain is giving orders and then saying, this is the direction that we're going. And everybody has their individual jobs. And as long as they know that it's all connected to we're reaching our destination or accomplishing our mission, that's the end goal. And so I think for a lot of business owners, that's actually a freeing position to be in, to think I don't have to micromanage everything. I don't have to be involved in every single meeting. I can deputize my VPs and my executives and my managers, or even the person who's actually writing the copy or designing the thing or developing the app. There should be a freedom that comes with clarity and alignment and vision. The way that we get there, though, it always starts with curiosity. Curiosity is the number one thing that I preach, especially to business leaders, to say, when is the last time that you thought about what it's like to be on the receiving end of your brand and your marketing efforts? Like, put yourself in the position of your customers for half a second. If you can do that, and you can start to ask more questions, do more digging, and eventually start to get above your business again, especially above your brand, now you're starting to get a better sense of what you're doing. And I know that sounds like, I know I just said like do more work to do less work, which is kind of the goal, but this is really a paradigm and a mentality shift. And it's going to permeate. If you're curious as the leader, your VPs and your managers and everybody in your company, they're also going to be curious. And the trickle effect of that is everybody is going to get more excited. There's going to be more momentum. There's going to be a lot of really cool stuff that comes out as people start to own their roles and own more of what they're doing. So, again, that's like as simple and as complicated as I can make it. But I think that's where a lot of business owners find themselves is they think that one more framework, one more conference, one more coaching call, one more whatever is going to provide this like light bulb moment. And oftentimes that's not where it is. When I work with groups, especially when I'm with a company that has 3 or 4 or 5 people who need to be in the conversation, there is always a moment where everybody starts to feel this synergy and go, wait a second, that's maybe the idea we haven't thought about yet. Can we pull on that thread a little bit? Can we go down that path a little bit and see where that leads us? And all we're looking for in those moments is not like the answer or the definitive whatever it is. It's really just alignment. So alignment is one of those things that will lead to clarity. It will lead to momentum. It will lead to creating more stuff. But it just takes a minute to get there. So for me and the work that I do, to answer your first question, I do it in about 30 days. And I know that sounds crazy because a lot of consultants out there are saying like, oh, if you work with me for 3 months and, we do this and that, then all that. My goal is to provide as much value as I can to basically just be an adrenaline shot in your leg and your brand. That way you can go back to doing more of what you're good at and you can empower your team and they can own things. And so in 30 days, I do exactly what we've talked about already. You get a 90-day prioritized list at the end of those 30 days, and then you get a 12-month roadmap to do whatever with. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure there's no confusion and no complexity in everything that you're doing, and that you understand the strategy and how either you or somebody else is going to bring that to life over the next however long.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Charlie. So, from the ground, when you deal or try to distill clarity for them, what are the big challenges that you generally face?
First one I would say is just position. And I mean, I know we talked for decades now that leadership is not a position necessarily, or that leadership is, more about what you do and the kind of culture you create and all of that. But I think sometimes it's really challenging an owner to stop thinking like an owner for a second. For a manager to stop thinking like a manager for a second. We get into these default modes as in our roles to think like, oh, I can only do this. As a creative or as a marketer, I can only ask questions or only ask permission before I go and do X, Y, and Z. Which again are not bad things. That's just how a lot of companies are structured. Instead, what I try to do is I try to just level set and say, after I do an initial audit of a brand, I will throw all of that in front of them and say, this is what the data shows. Like, you are more than welcome to have an opinion about it, but this is the black and white. This is the state of your brand as it is today. And now that we have that as a foundation, everybody who enters this conversation can say, well, from my seat, this is how that decision impacted this initiative, or from the view that I had with the data or whatever it is, this is how it played out. And so it's almost a disarming notion to put that in front of people, because it's really hard to argue with solid numbers. It's really hard to argue with the black and white. This is the reality of what we have. So I think the other part of it, if I'm being honest, is a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, they forget to dream. They forget to wonder. They forget to think about the what ifs. Again, they get so ingrained in the day to day, or we've got to hit revenue numbers, or in some instances, this probably, we have to make our investors happy, or, somebody else who's involved in all of this. I think for the first time, especially if you've been doing business for 2 to 3 years, and I'm guilty of this myself, right? There's a moment where you got to sit back and you got to have somebody come alongside you and just go, hey, did you ever think about this? Or 2 years ago, you said this was the most important thing. Has that changed at all? I really do think it comes down to just that curiosity aspect. And that's one of the things that I lead as far as an initiative goes. But, I also challenge leaders. If you ever lose that sense of curiosity, you can always go back to it. It could be in a meeting. It could be in a quarterly, a Q1 report. It could be in a strategic operations meeting or annual planning, or whatever it is. Or it could just be like while your mind is wandering, while you're watching Netflix at night or whatever it is. That's where I think the disconnect can start to go away, and you can start to feel that synergy and that momentum again in your brand.
Absolutely, absolutely, Charlie. My last question is to you is to understand, once you have the clarity distilled and you have it in your hand, either it's one line, one page, or several pages, what do you do with that? Do you make a frame and put it in the owner's walls? Do you send an email to everyone? How do you treat that document or understanding of yours and convey it to whoever it needs to be conveyed? How does that work on the ground?
Yeah, there's a number of ways that has to work. Number one, I think you're exactly right. It has to be front and center. It has to be prominent. It's got to be something. I mean, it's essentially the trumpet that you're going to have to blast for a very, very long time. There's an old, marketing adage, and I'm sure it's still the same in our fast-paced world, that it takes 20 touch points in order for a customer to understand a brand or a campaign or something like that. I can't tell you how many times I've been listening to the radio and I've heard a tune and it just kind of, sits in the back. And then someday I clue into that. I'm like, hey, what was that? What was that jingle about? And then I'll start to, pay attention. But it was, a dozen or more times before I actually paid attention and understood. The same is true in a company. And this is one of the myths I talk about when it comes to clarity is not a one-time event. You're not going to come away with a vision or a motto or a campaign or any kind of initiative and then everyone immediately understands, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to take some permeation. It's going to take some repetition. And that's okay. But I think, to your point as well, one of the most important things that leaders can do when it comes to clarity is to not treat it like an idol. They don't need to treat it like the thing to be worshipped or the thing to be placed above all else. When it comes to clarity and especially vision and strategy, those now become the filter through which all other decisions are made. So if we said, for example, our goal is to launch a new product in Q3, but in Q2, it's going to require us to build some stuff, beta test, run some test ads and all of that kind of stuff, right? The end of Q3 is our goal, but every decision that happens from now until then has to be filtered through that decision. So it does a number of things. Number one, it helps us say yes to the right things. It helps us say no to the wrong things, or maybe the not right now things. Number two, it also gives everybody confidence to go like, hey, we can have those parking lot conversations about what happens after this, but the main priorities will always rise to the top, and we will always understand these are the things that we need to be chasing. And then I think at the end of the day, like making sure that is also flexible and held with an open hand. That's a key component to this. Again, we're not trying to put this in stone and say this is the only thing we're ever going to do for the history of this company, right? Things are going to change. Things are going to shift. There's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be dependencies. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be revisions. But as long as everybody sees, oh, this is the North Star, this is the direction that we're headed in. So now I know how to pack my bag. I know how to take the next right step. I know when to pull over and ask a question, etc. I mean, it gives everybody that alignment to go after it with everything that they've got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Charlie, there is so much to learn about all this. And I'm sure a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses especially will connect with you, learn more about what you do, and how to get clarity for themselves. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, two different ways. The first is 100% go to my website. It's just clarityovereverything.com. There's a free PDF there where you can learn about the taxes and costs on your business and kind of see where you're at, how clear and aligned your brand is. But you can also learn about some of the services that I offer, either in an advisory work or a full-scale clarity and alignment sprint for your brand. And then I'm on LinkedIn. Charlie Sells is my actual name, by the way. That's not just a clever, hopeful, like I'm trying to sell stuff. It's been my name my whole life. So you can always find me on LinkedIn as well. Just search for Charlie Sells, and I'm sure I'll pop up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.